It's astonishing to think that one of the most important discoveries in human history almost never happened at all. The earliest clues about our ancient relatives surfaced not through careful planning, but through pure chance, an unexpected twist that later confirmed a theory born in the 19th century. Back then, many scholars were convinced that humanity must have originated somewhere in Asia, not because there was evidence, but because Asia seemed to sit perfectly between Europe and the Americas, making it the logical center point for early migrations. This speculation, though flawed, sparked a race among explorers and anthropologists who poured into Asian landscapes hoping to uncover humanity's first chapter. And then, against all odds, someone actually did. In 1891, on the Indonesian island of Java, anthropologist Eugène Dubois unearthed fragments of a skull cap and a femur. To him, this wasn't just another fossil, it was a revelation. He believed he had found an ancient being that walked upright long before humans, what he called an ape man. But the world wasn't ready to believe him. At the time, the scientific community knew almost nothing about early hominins. Dubois' discovery was dismissed, pushed aside, and essentially forgotten, at least until the 20th century. Decades later, new remains began surfacing in China. Teeth, skull fragments, and partial crania, these fossils, later known as Peking man, looked uncannily similar to Dubois' Java specimen. Suddenly the dots connected. Anthropologists realized that both finds belonged to the same genus and to an entirely new species of early human, Homo erectus, meaning upright man. And that name wasn't poetic, it was accurate. More complete fossils revealed legs, feet, and a spine built specifically for walking and running on 2 feet. For years, many believed Homo erectus was the first truly bipedal human, and while newer discoveries have corrected that assumption, this species still holds the title for many firsts. Homo erectus was the earliest human to develop a noticeably flat face, a projecting nose, and body proportions that resemble modern humans. Some evidence even suggests it may have had sparser body hair, another trait that brings it visually closer to us. But similarities aside, there were striking differences too. Their bodies were sturdier, their bones thicker, and their postcranial skeleton far more robust than ours. Even subtle variations in facial structure and differences between males and females set them apart. What makes Homo erectus even more extraordinary is its immense diversity. This species existed for an incredibly long time, spread across continents, and developed regional variations so extensive that researchers today recognize more than 27 subspecies. Fossil evidence places them throughout Africa, Asia, and parts of Europe, often in caves, fissures, and dense woodland environments. But one mystery has stirred debate for decades. Where did Homo erectus really come from? For most of modern paleoanthropology, the accepted idea was simple. Homo erectus evolved from earlier hominins, likely Homo habilis or a late Australopithecus, in Africa, and then expanded outward as shifting climates opened new habitats. But dating methods complicated this story. Some of the oldest Homo erectus fossils in Africa and Asia appeared to be roughly the same age, about 2 million years old. This led a team in 2011 to suggest a radical alternative. What if the earliest population actually emerged in Asia and later migrated back to Africa and Europe? The idea remains controversial and unconfirmed, but it emphasizes a deeper truth. We still have far more questions than answers about this species. And the fossils alone don't tell the whole story. The remains found beside Homo erectus hint at something even more dramatic. Scattered among their campsites are bones from large and medium-sized animals, proof that this ancient human may have occupied the role of apex predator. That detail changes everything. Before Homo erectus appeared, early humans were far from dominant. They survived, but they weren't ruling the food chain. But with Homo erectus, the scales shifted. They stepped into a world full of danger, and somehow climbed to the top. Their arrival marked a turning point, one that shaped the destiny of every human species that followed. Across countless excavation sites, researchers uncovered massive piles of animal bones, evidence of meals left behind by an ancient predator that hunted on a scale no earlier human ever had. These bone clusters included the remains of rhinoceroses, hippos, wild boar, deer, horses, elephants, and even large carnivores. Astonishingly, creatures that once preyed on earlier hominins now appeared to be prey themselves. Fossils in Kenya even showed crocodiles being actively hunted by Homo erectus, a reversal of roles that stunned scientists. But this raised a crucial question. How did Homo erectus manage to dominate animals far larger and more dangerous than itself? Over decades of research, a multi-layered explanation began to take shape. One of the earliest clues came from the body of Homo erectus itself. Compared to their predecessors, these early humans experienced a significant leap in size and strength. Some specimens stood around 6'1", 185 centimeters, towering over earlier hominins, and they weren't slender or fragile. Their bones were incredibly thick and dense, forming a sturdy framework built to withstand hard impacts, aggressive encounters, and the unpredictable chaos of big game hunting. Falls, collisions, and blows that would seriously injure a modern human were for them little more than minor inconveniences. Yet physical toughness was only one part of their advantage. Homo erectus also possessed something far more unusual in the animal world: endurance. Like modern humans, they were equipped with numerous sweat glands that allowed their bodies to cool efficiently during long periods of exertion. Their long legs and specialized foot structure were meant for distance running. Trackways discovered in ancient sediments suggest they were capable of remarkable persistence hunting, chasing prey for hours, sometimes until the animal collapsed from heat exhaustion or overwhelming fatigue. Often, these hunts began with an initial strike, an injury inflicted early on to slow the animal before the long pursuit. And that brings us to the next major advantage: technology. Despite being an ancient species, Homo erectus showed an intelligence level far ahead of anything that had existed before. Their average brain size of roughly 1,030 cubic centimeters, about 80% that of modern humans, made them the most cognitively advanced hominins of their era. This mental ability allowed them not only to survive, but to innovate. Their technological leap was significant enough to define an entire archaeological period, the Acheulean tool industry, lasting from nearly 1.95 million years ago to 130,000 years ago. During this era, they crafted sophisticated hand axes, cleavers, and cutting tools, powerful enough to bring down massive animals and then efficiently butcher them afterward, saving energy and allowing them to extract far more nutrition than early hominins who relied mostly on hands and teeth. Although direct fossil evidence is lacking, many researchers strongly believe Homo erectus also made and used early spears and thrown weapons. The oldest known spears, dating to 400,000 years ago, show design features that imply earlier prototypes must have existed long before. Their shoulder anatomy, strikingly similar to our own, suggests they were capable of throwing objects with force and precision. To other animals, this would have been a terrifying surprise. Apes that ran tirelessly, coordinated their attacks, and hurled projectiles from a safe distance. And their strategies didn't stop there. Footprint sites in Kenya revealed the presence of large groups traveling together. One of these trackways contained 97 footprints from at least 20 individuals, and one grouping stood out. It was made entirely by males, strongly implying a coordinated hunting party. This finding has led scientists to believe that Homo erectus may have practiced sexual division of labor. Men likely pursued large, high-risk prey,
while women collected more reliable foods such as fruits, nuts, and smaller resources, an early echo of hunter-gatherer social structure. Even if these hunting parties weren't successful every time, their importance cannot be overstated. The disappearance of straight-tusked elephants in the Levant coincides with local Homo erectus extinction, suggesting the species depended deeply on such massive animals for survival. In Southeast Asia, a similar pattern appears. The giant turtle, Megalocheles, vanished just before Homo erectus populations in the region also collapsed. Taken together, these clues paint a striking portrait of a species that thrived on big game and shaped entire ecosystems through its hunting practices. Homo erectus wasn't just another early human, it was one of the first true apex predators of the ancient world. As researchers pieced together the life of Homo erectus, one detail quickly became clear. This species consumed enormous amounts of food. Their larger brains and powerful bodies demanded far more calories than earlier hominins, and because they frequently hunted massive animals, they often ended up with more meat than they could finish alone. This abundance may have pushed them towards something remarkable, the earliest form of food sharing, a behavior that arguably laid the foundation for primitive healthcare. Evidence for this comes from several extraordinary fossils. One elderly individual, for instance, had lost every tooth due to severe gum disease, making chewing impossible. Under normal circumstances, this would have meant a slow death from starvation, yet this person lived long after the point at which they should have perished. The only explanation is that others brought them soft, nutrient-rich foods like marrow and brain tissue, proof of a community willing to care for its vulnerable. Other skeletons reinforce this idea. A young boy suffering from extreme scoliosis had survived far longer than his condition should have allowed. Another adult with skeletal fluorosis lived despite being physically incapable of hunting. Together, these fossils hint at a culture where injured or disabled members were supported by their group, a level of social empathy almost unheard of in early human evolution. But the advantages of abundant meat went even further. Homo erectus did not simply devour what they killed. They likely preserved food, possibly by drying or smoking it. This behavior would have been especially useful after they unlocked one of the most transformative forces in human history: fire. While the exact moment they first used fire remains uncertain, the oldest evidence places their interaction with it at 1.5 million years ago. At this early stage, they may not have created flames themselves, but they cleverly maintained natural fires sparked by lightning or wildfires. They learned to keep embers burning for long periods, likely using slow-burning material such as dried dung. Dedicated individuals, perhaps early fire keepers, may have tended these flames day and night. In time, they even transported fire as they migrated into colder environments, including Ice Age Europe. Fire warmed their camps, protected them from predators, allowed them to cook food, and dramatically improved nutrient absorption, all advantages that elevated their survival far above that of earlier hominins. Initially, fire remained rare and precious, but something changed around 400,000 years ago. Evidence shows a sudden increase in hearths and burned materials linked to Homo erectus, suggesting they had finally learned something revolutionary: how to start fires themselves. And with this breakthrough came indirect yet profound consequences. Fire became a natural gathering point. Groups likely sat together around the glow of burning wood, exchanging sounds, gestures, and ideas. Many anthropologists believe these nightly gatherings may have sparked the development of proto-language, the earliest ancestor of human speech. For a long time, researchers assumed Homo erectus was incapable of meaningful vocal communication. The famous Turkana boy fossil appeared to lack the proper respiratory control required for spoken language. But later investigations revealed that this individual had unusual pathological conditions that distorted his anatomy. He wasn't a typical example of the species. Subsequent fossils changed the picture completely. Some showed well-developed respiratory musculature capable of producing controlled vocalizations. Parts of their brains associated with language were proportionally similar to those of modern humans, and while their hyoid bone wasn't advanced enough for complex speech, it was sufficient to support a basic early form of language. In the glow of ancient firelight, Homo erectus may have taken humanity's first steps towards something far greater: a shared voice, a shared culture, and a shared future.
Whether or not Homo erectus could speak in a way we recognize today, one thing is unmistakable. They communicated well enough to work together and accomplish feats far ahead of their time. Their cooperative abilities become especially clear when we look at their early attempts at construction. One of the most puzzling examples surfaced in 1962, when researchers in Tanzania discovered a massive circular formation made of volcanic stones and packed earth, dating back 1.7 million years. The structure was heavily eroded, leaving its original purpose unclear. It might have been a primitive shelter, or perhaps a man-made barrier against harsh winds. Whatever it was, it showed a surprising level of organization for such an early stage of humanity. Since that discovery, far better preserved structures have been found. True huts and dwelling spaces crafted with branches, rocks, soil, and other natural materials. Some of these ancient homes appear intentionally built around fire pits, including a remarkable 700,000-year-old example from Germany. These fire-centered shelters likely served as winter refuges, allowing groups of Homo erectus to survive in regions that would normally have been far too cold. And their innovations didn't stop with architecture. Their ability to adapt expanded further with another crucial advancement: clothing. Although extremely simple, made only from animal hides, these early garments compensated for their lack of insulating body hair. Evidence suggests that this practice may stretch back an astonishing 3 million years, making clothing one of the oldest survival tools ever used by humans. All of these advantages, construction, fire use, clothing, help explain how Homo erectus spread across enormous distances. Yet their expansion wasn't limited to land. They had one more skill that continues to surprise scientists. They were capable of crossing open water. No boats from their time have survived, but the proof lies in where their remains are found. They managed to reach several isolated islands, such as Flores, Timor, and Roti, none of which had land bridges at the time. This makes Homo erectus the earliest known seafaring species. And these weren't accidental drift victims. Tools, butchered bones, and carved shells left behind on these islands showed they established stable communities, meaning these voyages were deliberate and required months of preparation. Their ability to navigate water likely prevented them from being trapped by geography, contributing to their extraordinary longevity. In fact, Homo erectus holds a record unmatched by any other human species. They existed for nearly 1.9 million years. The youngest known group survived until just 108,000 years ago. For comparison, modern humans, Homo sapiens, have only been around for about 300,000 years. And the second longest lasting human species, Homo habilis, managed only around 600,000 years. By sheer endurance, Homo erectus may have been the most successful humans to ever walk the earth. So what finally brought them to an end? The answer appears to be climate change. Near their extinction, vast woodland habitats where they hunted and thrived began to disappear. Many of the animals they relied on vanished as well. Their last known population lived on the island of Java, which, at the time, underwent a dramatic environmental shift. Dense rainforest rapidly expanded, replacing the open landscapes they depended on. Once this transformation took hold, their final refuge was lost. And with that, the longest-lasting chapter of human existence came to a close. Just one more of eras in the vast and complex story of humanity.